Have you ever had a grandchild look up at you in the grocery store and ask, "Why can't we just buy everything we want?" Moments like that are golden. They aren't just about candy bars or toys. They're open doors to teach lessons that may stay with them long after we're gone. And as grandparents, we have something their parents may not: time, patience, and stories that make money lessons feel real, not like a lecture. Let's walk through some simple ways you can share wisdom about money while deepening the bond you have with your grandkids. When you hand a child a few coins, it can feel like such a small moment. But those little circles of metal can carry entire stories if you let them. Think back to your own childhood, to the first thing you remember saving up for. Maybe it was a comic book, a small toy, or even something as practical as a pair of shoes you wanted to pick out yourself. You probably remember how long it took to collect enough, and how proud you felt when you finally held the item in your hands. Sharing that memory with your grandkids can make the act of saving real in a way numbers never could. Instead of just being told saving is important, they get to step into a story where they can feel your excitement and patience through your words. Children love stories, and when money is wrapped inside one, it transforms from an abstract idea into something alive. Imagine sitting at the kitchen table, a few coins in front of you, and telling your grandchild, "This was like me when I was your age. I had to wait and save, just like these coins are waiting to become something bigger." Suddenly, they're not just staring at change, they're watching the beginning of a journey. They'll start to see each coin as a step closer to a goal, not just something that disappears the moment it's spent. There's also something powerful about linking coins to feelings, not just things. You could tell them how you sometimes felt impatient or tempted to spend your money on something smaller, but how you chose to wait. Children recognize those feelings because they've felt the same tug in a toy aisle or candy shop. When they see that even you had to wrestle with those choices, it reassures them that learning self-control is normal, not a punishment. And when you add a little ritual, it becomes even more memorable. You might have a small jar or tin where you and your grandchild drop coins together and talk about what it's becoming. Each time they add a coin, it's a mini story in progress. Over time, when the jar is full and they use it for something they really want, the lesson doesn't need repeating. It lives in that experience. What makes this approach special is that it doesn't require lectures, charts, or complicated explanations. It's rooted in something children already understand: stories, waiting, and the joy of reaching a goal. By weaving your own childhood memories into the lesson, you're not only teaching them about money, you're giving them a piece of family history they may pass down one day too. When you're with a grandchild in a store, there's an opportunity hiding in plain sight. The shelves are lined with snacks, toys, or colorful things that immediately catch their eye. Instead of simply saying yes or no, you can turn that moment into a lesson about choice. Hand them a set amount of money, maybe just a few dollars, and tell them they can pick what to buy, but only within that limit. What happens next is more valuable than anything you could explain with words. They look at the shelves, weigh one option against another, and realize they can't have it all. That tiny tug of wanting more than the money allows is the heart of understanding budgeting. Children often think money stretches endlessly. They see adults swipe cards or hand over bills, and the concept feels magical. Giving them control over a small budget breaks that illusion gently. They may choose a bag of candy, but then they realize the toy they had their eye on is out of reach. It's not a punishment. It's a revelation. Money is about making decisions, not about satisfying every desire. And when they finally decide, the purchase feels different. There's pride in ownership because they weighed the options themselves. You can make this practice a regular part of family life. For example, on a movie night at home, tell your grandchild, "Here's the budget for snacks. You pick what we'll enjoy together." Suddenly, the decision isn't just about what they want. It's about considering everyone else too. If they blow it all on chips, there may be no room for drinks or popcorn. The small tension between personal desire and group enjoyment mirrors real-life trade-offs that adults make every day. Sometimes, you'll be surprised by their choices. A child may skip the flashy packaging and pick something simple, or they may experiment and learn from picking something they didn't really enjoy. Both outcomes are valuable. The first shows thoughtfulness. The second shows that mistakes are safe and educational. When the stakes are low, you can gently talk afterward about how they felt about their choice, reinforcing the lesson without judgment. Over time, these little exercises build a foundation for bigger financial decisions later in life. It's not about the candy or the movie snacks. It's about training the mind to understand that money carries weight and that every dollar has to be directed somewhere. By guiding them through these everyday choices, you're giving them a skill set that stays useful long after childhood. The ability to pause, weigh, and choose with intention. Most conversations about money with children focus on two big ideas, saving and spending. But there's a third piece that often gets overlooked, and it can be just as life-shaping: giving. Introducing a kindness jar is a simple and powerful way to plant this seed. Imagine keeping a small jar in the kitchen or living room, where you drop in spare change every so often. When your grandkids visit, you invite them to do the same. It doesn't matter if it's a coin or a small bill. What matters is that they see the act of setting something aside not for themselves, but for someone else. At first, kids might ask, "What's this money for?" And that's the perfect doorway. You can explain that while saving helps us reach our goals and spending brings us joy, giving can make other people's lives a little brighter. For a child, this can feel like a surprising twist, because most of their experience with money is centered around what they get. The kindness jar turns that around by showing them money as a tool for connection, generosity, and thoughtfulness. The impact deepens when the jar is eventually used. Maybe you decide together to use it to buy cookies for a neighbor, school supplies for a local drive, or flowers for a family member who's had a hard week. The actual purchase is less important than the conversation that follows. You can ask your grandchild how it felt to use the jar this way. Chances are, they'll light up when they realize they had a hand in making someone smile. That sense of pride and joy is often stronger than the thrill of getting something for themselves. What makes this lesson so valuable is that it balances out the natural pull of wanting more. Children learn early that money can buy toys and treats, but when they see that it can also bring comfort or kindness to others, it changes how they view it. They begin to understand that money carries responsibility, and that responsibility can feel good. It doesn't take away from their fun, it adds another layer of meaning. Over time, the kindness jar can even become a tradition, something your grandchildren look forward to filling and emptying together. It's not just about teaching them generosity, it's about creating a shared ritual that ties your family values into everyday actions. Long after they grow up, they may remember that jar and carry the habit of giving into their own families, keeping a piece of your influence alive in the way they live and share. Games have a magic way of teaching lessons without feeling like lessons at all. Children naturally lean into play, and when money is woven into that play, the lessons sink in almost without effort. A classic example is board games like Monopoly, which on the surface is about rolling dice and buying properties, but underneath it shows how money moves, how rent works, and how decisions affect what you have later. For younger kids, even a simple game with pretend coins and bills can spark the same sense of curiosity. When you play together, you're not just passing time, you're shaping how they view choices, risks, and rewards. The beauty of using games is that the stakes are low, but the lessons are high. If a child spends recklessly in the game and runs out of money, they get to feel the consequence in a safe way. They laugh about being broke in a round of Monopoly, but somewhere in their mind the message lands: money can run out if you're not thoughtful. On the other hand, when they save and make smarter moves, they see how it gives them more freedom later in the game. That cause and effect sticks far better than a lecture ever could. Games also open up space for conversation. If a grandchild loses everything in the game, you can gently ask, "What do you think happened there?" and let them reflect. Or, if they succeed, you can celebrate together and highlight what choices led to that outcome. Because the setting is playful, they don't feel judged. They're learning through trial, error, and laughter. That freedom to experiment is what makes the lesson memorable. It doesn't have to stop at traditional board games either. You can invent your own simple activities. For example, create a pretend family store at home with items priced with coins, and let your grandchild buy or save with a small allowance of play money. Or use cards where they draw surprise expense, like fixing a toy, or a bonus, like finding a coin under the couch. These little scenarios mimic real life, but keep things lighthearted. The wonderful part of this approach is that it blends bonding with teaching. You're not sitting them down for a serious talk. You're rolling dice, moving pieces, and laughing together. Yet, beneath the fun, they're practicing decision-making, patience, and the idea that every choice has consequences. Over time, those playful moments may carry forward into real life, where they'll recall the lessons tucked inside those games and apply them when it matters most. Family traditions often carry recipes, stories, and rituals, but they can also be a gentle way to introduce money habits that stick. One tradition you might start with your grandchildren is tracking expenses together in a simple, visible way. This doesn't mean pulling out spreadsheets or overwhelming them with numbers. Instead, it could be as easy as a small notebook on the kitchen counter or a colorful chart on the fridge where you jot down what was spent for the week. When your grandchild visits, you can show them how you add to it and maybe even let them write down the entry. The act of recording isn't just about the math. It's about showing that money has a rhythm and that paying attention is part of caring for a household. Children often see purchases happen, but rarely see what comes after. They might notice you hand over a bill at the grocery store, but they don't see the planning that allows for those groceries to be bought week after week. By letting them peek into your system, you pull back the curtain on something usually hidden. A simple sentence like, "I write this down so I know how much is left for other things," explains more about budgeting than a long explanation ever could. Over time, the process itself can feel like a ritual, much like saying grace before a meal or sharing a family story. You might set aside 5 minutes at the end of a visit to update the notebook together. If they're old enough, you can let them add up the totals or use a calculator, turning it into a shared task. Younger kids can decorate the page or place stickers next to items, making the tradition feel playful while still meaningful. The beauty of this practice is that it ties money management to family connection rather than stress. Instead of money being a topic that feels heavy or off limits, it becomes part of everyday life, something normal to talk about. Your grandchild learns that tracking isn't about being strict, it's about being mindful. It shows them that small habits done consistently create stability and peace of mind. As years go by, they may not remember the exact numbers you wrote down, but they'll remember the feeling of sitting with you, recording together, and seeing how calm and organized you were about it. That memory alone may encourage them to create their own version of the tradition in their adult lives, carrying forward not just the habit, but also the sense that money can be managed with care and love rather than anxiety. There's a quiet strength in saying, "Not today," and it's one of the most valuable money lessons a child can learn. Grandkids often see money as a door that opens instantly to whatever they want. If they spot a toy in a shop or a treat in a cafe, the natural thought is, "Why can't we have it now?" That's when the moment arrives. Instead of simply saying, no, framing it as "not today," introduces the idea of waiting, patience, and prioritizing bigger goals over immediate wants. It softens the refusal while opening a new conversation about choice. Children live very much in the present, so delaying gratification feels almost impossible at first. But when they hear you explain, "We're saving for something more important," they start to understand that money isn't just about quick rewards. It's about planning ahead. Over time, these little pauses accumulate into a habit of thinking before spending, a skill that will serve them throughout their lives. The beauty of this lesson is that it's taught in real moments, not hypothetical ones. Maybe you're walking down the toy aisle and your grandchild's eyes light up at a shiny box. You kneel down, smile, and say, "Not today. We're choosing to save for our trip to the zoo next week instead." The child may feel a pang of disappointment, but when the zoo day arrives and they're holding popcorn while watching elephants, the connection becomes clear. They see that waiting brought a reward bigger than the toy. Sometimes, "not today," can also lead to creativity. If they can't have the item right now, perhaps they can draw it, write it on a wish list, or set aside a few coins in a jar to work toward it. Turning the pause into a mini project helps them see that waiting doesn't mean losing. It means building anticipation and creating a plan. That shift from frustration to purpose is powerful. This phrase also models emotional calm around money. Instead of reacting with stress or defensiveness, you're teaching them that it's okay to wait, that self-control is part of how families manage resources. You're showing them that money decisions don't always have to be dramatic, sometimes they're simply about timing. Later in life, when they face bigger temptations like gadgets, cars, or credit cards, they may recall those moments with you. They'll remember that someone once taught them that saying, "Not today," isn't about denial, it's about protecting tomorrow. And that quiet strength, planted early, can shape the way they handle choices for the rest of their lives. Grandparents are uniquely placed to make money lessons gentle, memorable, and rooted in love. You're not just teaching dollars and cents, you're passing on values that may echo through generations. So, what about you? What's the first money lesson you ever learned, and who taught it to you? Share your story in the comments. Your memory might just spark an idea for another family watching. And if you found this helpful, consider subscribing for more simple ways to strengthen family bonds and prepare for retirement with peace of mind.